Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the Wrestling Underground podcast. I am your host, as always, Chad Portal. Joining me, as always, is my glorious co-host, Marcus Green. Marcus, how are you?
Good, man. Glad to be back. Lined up another hot topic. One we haven't visited to this degree in quite some time.
No, and the ironic thing is, I've watched a lot of wrestling the last 3 days. I caught up on the New Japan show. Your boy is the new champion, and I am at a loss for words as to why they would put the belt on a 42-year-old with no charisma. But okay, I feel like Jesse Pinkman from Breaking Bad. Don't sell marijuana to my husband. Okay. um, I watched the latest episodes of NWA and TNA. I watched MLW show from this past Saturday. I even watched a little bit of Raw last night because I got my girl into My Hero. She loves it. We're about midway through season 3, so she's cried a lot.
Number 50 on this while she's a keeper.
Right? But when I was waiting for her to be ready to watch, I watched some Raw, and I was like, "This is fucking terrible. Why do people watch this?"
Not 3 hours, but
Right? And then I have to see advertisements for this stupid LFT, LFO, PCBO, whatever the fuck it's called show, Legends and Future Greats, or some stupid fucking nonsense. Like, these people are not gonna be stars. Like, your biggest name was Maven. Sorry, The Miz.
bro, did you? Speaking of devil, he go to advertising on TV for. Did you get those new list of names that they applied? Jesus,
Yeah, the WB is
booty in a
terrible.
bottle, booty in a bottle. Like as soon as I saw, it, like this is what Chad's always complaining about. Put
Just
on ten.
the worst fucking names. There's no originality. They're like Crabopolis Microcosm. It's like, what? I feel like they need to start paying royalties to Key and Peele because just reading all those names sounded like the fake names they came up with for those All Star Game bits they did, like screeching dolphin sounds. Like it's terrible. Not as terrible as the NWA though. So I say all that to say I watched all these shows, and of course WWE just had a massive round of cuts. And while Cedric Alexander has plenty of talent in the ring, I feel like they didn't cut anyone that it's like, oh my god, how
Yeah,
could you?
anybody that was doing anything with the damn, anybody that said any differently is blowing increasingly House of the Dragon level of smoke.
Yes. There's two names that I would pick up instantly, but not because they're draws, but because there's potential, and that's Bea Priestley. I don't remember what her Fed name was, and Indy Hartwell. Indy Hartwell has charisma off the fucking chain, and Bea Priestley is one of the best in-ring wrestlers that the women's division, any women's division, could have. Pick them up, forget the rest, especially Gallows and Anderson. Don't fucking go there. But I see, Cedric will probably pop up in AEW because MVP and Lashley and Shelton will push for him. But the rest, where are they going to go? I think the NWA, and I think that's kind of part of the issue, and we're going to get to it. There was a time though when the NWA had, I think, a headlining group that maybe wouldn't be able to rival top tier AEW circa 2019 when you had all these guys, plus Brian Danielson, Adam Cole, Sting, CM Punk waiting in the wings. But I think could rival, if I may be so bold to say so, TNA in 2019.
TNA had a strong B squad,
They
strong
did.
B squad.
They had Nick Aldis as the headliner. They had Eddie Kingston, Ricky Starks, James Storm, Eli Drake, the now current LA Knight. That's just some of the names.
That's
They
a slew.
right. They had Melina, who, while granted, we're gonna get to a category that may seem like I'm harping on Melina. I'm not. They had Melina, Thunder Rosa, Sienna. They had a nice stack of talent. Now the problem ends up coming out though that the pandemic, the rise of AEW, and Billy Corgan's own incompetence, plus the litany of other reasons that we're going to get to, caused it to go from the new hotness, where Marcus and I were literally covering the show each and every week because it was, like less than an hour. It had 4 or 5 matches every show. The matches weren't 12 minutes long or 15 minutes long or 22 minutes long, but they also weren't so short that you're like, why are we even doing this? They did a great job developing a match formula and a show formula where you got to see wrestlers do their thing, build storylines, but not be bogged down by pointless 20-minute filler matches. And it felt good. It was quick. They shot it in a soundstage, and it felt, kind of like I don't know if you watched. You were probably a little bit too young, but I remember watching WCW Saturday Night. I get 6:05. My dad would order us pizza. I'd sit down and start scarfing down pizza while I watched WCW, and it kind of had that same feeling. It was that late night Saturday kind of hangout show, but on a Tuesday.
Yeah, on a Tuesday, it was Tuesday.
I think it was Tuesday. I could be wrong though.
Yeah, I don't feel like saying it was Wednesday, but either way, man, it was a nice nice pie slice throughout the day.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, that we consistently cover love, had a great theme song. That, like Chad said, we consistently covered. The only thing, listening to you go through, I'm like, the only thing we ever complained about, and you're gonna love this because I know you we had talked about this for so long, was that weird ass football commercial.
Oh God,
Yeah, that was the only thing we ever complained about.
that was fucking weird. Well, that and Velvet Sky's commentary, and
You know,
she doesn't appear to be around anymore. So let's tackle this in earnest. Oh, look, Ricky Starks is on NXT. Apparently, there's a rumor going around that the reason why Tony Khan stopped booking Ricky Starks is because they pitched a bunch of new ideas from him after the whole Adam Copeland, Bryan Danielson, Ricky Starks thing. And he's like, I can't talk now. I'm on a WWE show. Now you're hanging out. And if that's true, and listen, I've heard some things about Ricky Starks that tracks as far as something he could do. I'm just saying I wouldn't expect too much out of the dude right now. He's hurt his own career, but also what's Miro and Malachi Black gonna do? We'll find out in a couple weeks, I guess. That being said, Ricky Starks and former NWA talent, one of the names we were talking about. When he was in, this was 7 years ago. He was 28. When he was on NWA, you and I both thought future world champion. Future world champion, right?
yeah, yeah, literally on well, I'm gonna say live TV, but live YouTube, the tape YouTube, telling people to call him the Stroke Daddy. Now that was the only thing I'm like, yo, bro, I'm not calling you that. But I saw the potential back then.
Yeah. Oodle's a potential still. He's 35. He's not young by any means. I'm saying that as a 38-year-old. But like, well, let's see what he can do in NXT. He's finally there's an injection of some talent in this division because honestly, when you think about it, it's Ethan Page. So we're not doing too well. I don't know why you put Stephanie Vaker or whatever how you pronounce her name with Julia. Like these two women are phenomenal, and you just basically made them into just fucking everyday kind of people. Like they took the uniqueness from them by shoving them like these three women, and now Jordan Grace is going to go to NXT. These four women should all be the faces of the fucking brand, but that means keeping them away from one another until it's time to make money. It's not time to make money yet because we don't know who the fuck Vakur is right now. But I digress. Let's focus on the NWA, Chad. So 10 reasons why the NWA failed. We broached the topic already. The talent they had, all the things, and the pandemic happened. AEW took off. MLW started to get some guys too. One of the first things that became pretty obvious is the lack of money. The lack of money, I think, has hindered them. There's been a lot of people recently, like a lot of young talent, who have stopped wrestling for the NWA, and they've done so because they're just not getting paid. At least paid what they think they should be. They can't really go too many places. They're not drawing big crowds. One of the biggest issues that we have, we'll talk about, is kind of goes hand in hand with the lack of revenue, and that's their TV situation. We'll talk about that later. But you can't have a brand that makes no money and you just keep investing in it and it turns out nothing because eventually you're not going to be able to retain guys. Apparently, had Jordan Gray stayed in TNA, and this is even now more truer since we found out that Grace will be appearing in NXT, she would have made more money on her next contract in TNA than she would have by going to NXT, and that's because NXT contracts are significantly less than WWE, AEW, TNA, and Japan. Like they pay them substantially less, with the idea that if you make it to the main roster, you get a new contract, and then you make 2 to 3 times more money. When you can't even compete with NXT or TNA, you're not going to do well, and the NWA can't. And if you look at the roster, there are some bangers, some legitimate bangers, but for the most part, it's talent that either can't get over elsewhere, are too new to be able to demand more money, or are old hats who are clinging on to their career by playing the hits, so to speak, but not even the more popular ones. And we're going to talk about them too. So when you look at the lack of money, it's affected them.
Yeah, real quick, was they the one that had the gas rumors?
Oh yeah, there was rumors. There's rumors that they had members of the roster siphoning gas from fans during shows. I've heard that from 3 different people. I don't know if it's true. I heard it from a fan. I heard it from an online source, and I heard it from a wrestler who potentially may have been involved or not involved with the act, but with the show that it happened at. But they don't know for sure if it happened. They just heard the same rumor while they were at the show. So who knows? But yeah, when that's a rumor, it's not good. Now, granted, look at TNA. We were told at the end of 2024, oh my God, they're cutting costs, and then it comes out, no, we're just not going to spend whatever it is on Trent Seven. We're not cutting costs. We're getting rid of dead weight. Because look at it, like doing live TV is more expensive than taped, and TNA has 2 live shows in the next. We had it like 2 weeks ago, and we're gonna have another one. I think in March. You're gonna have 2 live shows in the span of 9 weeks, 10 weeks. That's not cheap. Cutting costs, I don't buy it. I don't buy it. But that being said, yeah, lack of money. Even if they're not, let's say they're not out of money. Let's say they're turning a small profit, right? I thought that was Andy Levine for a second. I'm like, when did he come back? Let's say they're turning a small profit. It's small. It's insignificant. It's enough to keep the doors open. They are not making money hand over fist, and we'll get to why I think that is eventually. But yeah, it's not great. Moving on to what I believe is number 9 on the list because lack of money is number 10. I think you can succeed if you don't have money, at least a lot of money. You can succeed as long as your product's still good. So that's why it's number 10. Number 9, and this is kind of point counterpoint because we just saw him on NXT. The lack of ability to retain talent. Losing someone like Ricky Starks to AEW has to be one of the biggest, as the kids say, fumbles in wrestling modern day history. Because knowing what we know now, with hindsight being 2020, knowing that Nick Aldis would drop the belt, what was it, 3 years ago, for the last time, you could have had Ricky Starks waiting in the wings to take that belt and go to the next era. I think one of the reasons that I'm such a big fan of MLW, even though they can't retain talent themselves, they went from Swerve, I think it was Tom Lawler, and then it was Jacob Fatu, Hammerstone, Alex Kane, Kojima, and I'm Matt Riddle. But like every run felt like it felt like they were handing the ball off to the right person every time, except this time. But even now, like looking at this objectively, the Matt Riddle run was well built up. It was I don't want to say telegraphed, but it was expected. Um, but had it been anyone else, it would have been a good title switch, right? So, excuse me, you could have had Ricky Starks in this situation, but they didn't, right? They didn't have anyone who could take the belt off of Aldis. They had to switch gears to Trevor Murdoch. I think Matt Cardona beat Aldis at one point. Like he wasn't always champion. Cody beat Aldis at one point, but Aldis was the guy, and anyone who took the belt on him was going to drop the belt back to Aldis. Not being able to retain guys like Ricky Starks, L.A. Knights, Cody, even though he wasn't technically part of the company, James Storm, go through the list. Not being able to retain these big names or like the young developmental names because like Thunder Rosa was on her way to being a big star for them, and she jumped ship. Not being able to retain these cats and kittens is a big reason why we're in the situation we are now. Because you look at the roster, and while there are still some bangers on there who can develop into something interesting, today's episode that I watched had Mims, terrible name, very good wrestler, very excited about where he can go. He's not going to hit his peak though with NWA, that's for sure. When you see that, you know that they've lost too much talent over their 8 years, 9 years, 6 years, whatever we're on now. And not being able to retain that talent has directly affected, what they've been able to do in the interim. They've been hindered. Like they fell back years because of the loss of talent. Same thing happened to TNA in 2014. Losing all those names hindered them
Yeah.
significantly. NWA, no different.
Do you think? I mean, obviously, Aldis was the star. He completely reinvented himself coming off of his TNA run. C3.
Yeah, yeah. When EC3 was coming and emerging as the next guy with TNA in like what was that 2015, 2016? Yeah, I really think Starks could have been that guy. The problem is though they didn't have any contingency plans, and I feel like when you look at the roster now and you look at some of the bigger issues that have plagued this company, it's the lack of foresight into who to develop next. That's really hurt them, and you're seeing it on all levels. I think all their world champion is Thom Latimer. I want to say he's 40 or close to being 40. Their tag team champions are Marche Rocket and Rodney Mack. Marche may not be 40 yet, but he might be. Rodney Mack is in his mid 50s. I think Alex Taylor's their upper mid card champion, but like you have so many old hats on this company who are carrying it, and none of them have any drawing power. And you're not doing anything to build up the next generation because you shouldn't be going from, let's go back a little bit. It was Trevor, or was it Cardona to Trevor? I think it was Cardona to Nick, to Trevor Murdoch, to Tyrus, to EC3, to Thom Latimer.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's the time. Yeah.
Now, like Cardona, you can make a case for. But he hasn't gone back for obvious reasons. So like when you think about that, when you think about all these names that they've had, and who they put the belt on, they haven't been investing in young talent. Like you could put the belt right now on someone like Colby Carino. He wrestles as well as his dad. He's got a good look. He stands out. He's got the pedigree. Yet Colby can't even sniff the light heavyweight title. Forget who the champion is right now. Hang on, let's look
When
this
did
up.
they add that?
The light heavyweight title.
Yeah, because they got the TV, the national, and now they got the light heavyweight.
Oh, brother, they have the world's heavyweight, the NWA Women's World Championship, the NWA World Junior Heavyweight Championship. That's held by Alex Taylor. They have the NWA National Champion. That's Mims. They have the NWA World Television Champion. That's held by Carson Bartholomew Drake. They have the Women's Television Champion. That's held by Big Mama. They have the Mid American Champion. That's held by Jeremiah Plunkett. They have the NWA what is it, World Tag Team Champions. That's Trevor Murdoch and Mike Knox. They have the Women's Tag Team Champions. They just won it today, or maybe it was just aired today, and that's Big Mama and Kenzie Page. And then they have the NWA U.S. Tag Team titles, which is the Country Gentlemen, AJ and Casey. What are their names? Kazanza, right? And like I think Alex Taylor has a shot. Mims has a shot, but outside of that, like you have a bunch of like Y champions, and again, we're gonna get to those cats and kittens later. But yeah, so like Ricky Starks, not even just Ricky Starks. Jordan Clearwater was someone who I was very high on as a talent, not as a person, but on a talent. Now I think he might be injured, or maybe he's just done with wrestling, but he hasn't wrestled since 2023. But he had the look, man.
Yeah, I mean, obviously this might be this. I'm actually now thinking about might be a question for later. They are now besides all the oldest.
Stark and Rosa for sure. I think they did a lot to elevate their. I don't think without Power, I don't think Stark and Rosa end up going to AEW. And I'm sure there's more that I'm forgetting. But yeah, I would definitely say those two for sure. Which is actually kind of leads into our next point. Uh, One of the biggest issues with the NWA is their outdated work concept. They wrestle like it's the 1970s, the early 1980s. Most matches are slow. There's bear hugs and there's slaps to the face and there's eye pokes and everything just feels like we're watching wrestling from 45 years ago. Now, they kind of still did that when they relaunched and would be it 2018, 2019. But the difference was they were still capable of having some pretty great bangers. Cody versus Aldis at the anniversary show when Aldis beat Cody to win the belt back was awesome. The problem is they have too many talents who are being taught a more modern way of wrestling in a promotion that orchestrates old school matches. And then they try to find wrestlers who can do that style, and then we just find out that they're either a bad in the ring, they're slow, prodding, unathletic, unexciting, or the style just doesn't work anymore. And I don't know entirely which one it is, but I do know that they go hand in hand sometimes. And I think when you're looking at some shows, it's really hard to get into them because some of the matches are just really bad, and it may not always be due to talent. It may be due to the direction of the content, and when you have to wonder, am I watching a bad match because they're just doing a slow plotting, pur- purposely unentertaining match on purpose, as opposed to wondering if the talent's any good. I think you have to really ask yourself, hey, are we doing the right thing with this product? Billy Corgan's stuck in the past. He's always said that he wants to have an old school wrestling product. And I think we're finding out that it has severe limitations. Sometimes you just can't rewind the clock. You have to accept that certain aspects of history have to remain historic. Not everything can be remodernized, and I think the NWA is suffering from that. They've had a real opportunity to turn themselves into the new Ring of Honor, and instead we're getting a poorly run vanity project. Mostly due to the fact that I can't really say in the years I've been watching the NWA, which not consistently, but regularly, I can't say that I've seen a good match since 2020, like a really good, genuinely impressive match. So
Yeah, and they didn't have a roster full of guys like Aldis and like Storm and Cody who can kind of isolate, oscillate, I should say, with those styles where thinks himself as an old school guy anyway. But they could match whatever talent they was in the ring with. A lot of these guys, like you said, they're either new schoolers that haven't been this old school thing, or they're old schoolers who are just washed and it's coming off like they're more fit for the NWA because they can't do much
Mm-hmm.
or they don't want to do much. So, or it's just somebody that's outright like Tyrus and just completely just ass. So, yeah, it's just a bad combination. Now you got guys who probably need to be probably more in a more elevated situation like an NXT or whatever. But you know, not only do they not have any name value or potential to get in those situations to kind of show off more, but like you said, then there's everybody's doing this slow, plodding, boring style. Specifically, the tag teams. I check out some footage gearing up for the show, and it's slow, plodding, repetitive, and painfully predictable. And ultimately, you really just want to turn it off.
You're not wrong. Like even a little bit. Um, that takes us to an issue that I think goes hand in hand when you have an outdated product. If you have outdated wrestlers in the ring, you're generally speaking going to have outdated characters. And that's one of the biggest issues I have with the NWA roster. It's just some of the worst characters in wrestling. You have Gags the Gimp. You have Haley J, who is kind of just trying to be bad baby in that sense. Like she's like this trailer park queen kind of gimmick. And I forget what her whole shtick is. It's bad though. Oh, it's Hollywood. That's what it is. Because get it, she's from the hood, but she's Hollywood. She's this blonde chick, who just screams, my family does meth, and I'm supposed to be like,
So instead of hardcore country, it's hardcore country.
pretty much. Like I'm sorry, like I don't think you owning a trailer in the middle of Ohio where you do swingers parties with other slightly out of shape old white people is a gimmick that I want to watch. If I have to wonder if you actually do meth or not, I don't think that's a gimmick I want to watch. But like,
Isn't it like wrong turn to sex addiction?
yeah, pretty much. But if it's not Hollywoods or gimps, it's clowns or it's cowboys.
I'm surprised I ain't got nobody doing vaudeville.
They kind of do. Now, granted, this is one of the few gimmicks I actually like. They got Baron von Storm, whose his entire gimmick is he's Baron von Raschke from the 1960s and 70s. Right?
That's crazy. So was the Pope doing the stuff he was doing in TNA there, or was he just like the Pope was just
No, he was doing the same stuff in here that he was in TNA.
okay?
But like you have that. You have people like what's his name, Magic Jake Dumas, who's like your carnival yard barker. And then you just got other guys like Scion, who is Robert Anthony. Robert Ego Anthony. He's just a guy in a mask. Or you have Wrecking Ball Ligursky and Jay Bradley. They're big guys who are big, and I'm just like the slime balls who are modern day nasty boys, and I'm just I don't get what the appeal is. These aren't guys that I think would people would buy money to go see if they're in any promotion where people were buying tickets. I do think a lot of these tickets are either comped or are they're maybe getting 100 or 200 people per their TV tapings, and it's because they have a brand, the NWA, not because they have wrestlers like Gags the Gimp or Hollywood.
You think there are a lot of people telling him you're gonna be on the CW?
Oh, not anymore, because they're not even on the app anymore. But this then goes directly to what I think is another big issue, and that's the kind of like their desire to book really weird champions consistently. Thom Latimer's probably the most egregious one, right? I think he's probably the most obviously egregious one. Instead of going with a new star or building up someone, or even just putting the belt back on EC3 and letting him have it. Now, granted, from what I understand, EC3's body is breaking down, so he may have asked to have the belt removed from him. But they got Richard Holiday in their orbit. 32-year-old up and comer, great charisma, just all sorts of impressive potential and abilities. And you could have put the belt on him, but instead it's Thom Latimer. Just the fucking worst. But that's not all. You look at Kenzie Page. Kenzie Page is maybe 23. She has her whole fucking career ahead of her. The problem is Kenzie Page does not have a unique look. Kenzie Page is not a overly good talker. She's good. She's competent. You could put her on the mic and it would be fine, but she's not going to cut any, hard time promos. She's also not so exceptionally good in the ring where you're like, she has to be champion. She's the Ricochet of women, Sol Roca, right? Isn't that who everyone talks about is the new Ricochet in NXT? Sol Roca, the surfer chick.
Yeah.
She is a middling, average talent whose peak may be, in any other company, whose peak may be a two-time, women's tag team champion, depending on where she goes. She is not someone that I would build a promotion around, and it becomes even more painfully obvious that this is the wrong move because you have people like Max the Impaler, who is a woman but goes by they them pronouns, and Natalia Markova, who looks like a Playboy model. You have these two women who are uniquely distinct, who are incredible in the ring. Markova's good. I wouldn't say incredible. They stand out. They'd be great kind of torch bearers coming off of Camille. And you're going with someone who I would get confused with any Mid Ohio concert. Just no stardom right there. No uniqueness. No pop or pizzazz. Nothing. I think that's a big issue when you're booking talent who does not have upside and who aren't going to make you loads of money, and you're putting the belts on them, putting them on your most prestigious shows, getting them your biggest opportunities, and these people can't or won't become big stars. You're bogging down the entire show at that point.
Yeah, I want to. What was? Because I well, feel like I know what you're gonna say, but you always break it down from an analytical perspective, both short term and long term. Which was more egregious, putting the title on Tyrus or Thom?
Tyrus, because Tom, whatever, can wrestle. He's not good. He's not bad though. He's boring, and I think that's the major difference. Is like you can be boring. That's not the worst thing in the world. The worst thing in the world is being bad. Tyrus was bad and boring, and that's I think one of those situations that you don't ever want to find yourself in. Can I just pause a second and say this? They released like 20 people, and Sean Spears is closing the show on NXT against the Italian stereotype. The fuck are we doing here?
Yeah, yeah. Somebody said NXT firing all cylinders. They that's a lie. But
No, I think they're telling the truth. If the cylinders is a single one, if you have one cylinder and it's going, yes, I agree. They're firing on all cylinder.
but yeah, it's yeah, and Tyrus was ass on two television programs.
Yeah.
So that's it's not good. Like you said, they got so many champions, and one of the times before we got ready to do this show, that I checked it out between the new place that they're at and some of these guys that they had come out. I'm like, these guys aren't just they don't just look at uninspiring. The wrestling's uninspiring. I'm sitting there like the way the camera was set up, like they were literally cultivating something real special in 2019. And like I said, some in 2020, and just like they just start doing the exact opposite of all that from every perspective,
Yeah.
and it's not good. And I looked at Kenzie Page. She, like you said, she's young. She's got potential. They actually has some real interesting looking women, probably more so than men in certain instances. Like you said, there's a ceiling for that as well. So it's like, and I don't even know how good or not good Camille got when she was there. Good either, but that's a weird place to be too, because it's like you need somewhere to go. Um, you can kind of grow in NWA to a point, but it's definitely not nowhere to stay. But if you don't really elevate to a certain point, you kind of behind twice being in NWA. But everybody can't go and start out at NXT or even TNA in certain instances, because now that we're talking about it, feels like NWA is taking the spot that people wouldn't let TNA get out of years ago. So it's this weird thing, but it will be interesting to your point about who exactly of those names released end up in NWA, because God forbid TNA tries to take all of them on.
Yeah, and they shouldn't take any of them, truthfully. Um, Another big issue. This is number five. Uh,
Oh,
yeah, number five is their inability to create new stars, and that kind of goes hand in hand with some of the other ones that we talked about before. Yeah, looking at the roster, right? I think you got just on the men's side. I think you have four really good potential options. You have Daisy Kills or Daisy Kill. He's a singer, but with the body of a Greek god, and has a look that's good enough. You have Kerry Morton, the son of I can't remember his fucking name. Uh, Ricky Morton. There it is. Yeah, the son of Ricky Morton, Kerry Morton. He's really good. He's not exactly the best talker, but like if you're looking for someone who can give you 25-minute bangers, it's Kerry. You have someone who could be his Dusty Rhodes to his Ric Flair and Colby Corino. Colby's fantastic. I love Colby Corino. He and Kerry have this dichotomy that if you put them together would be huge for this brand. Like they're not known for great rivalries, and these two could be fantastic, especially over the belt. The other one, somebody we've seen before with Mike Perro, is Odinson, former All Japan wrestler and one half of the End, now part of the Immortals with what is his name? J.R. Kratos. Odinson is jacked to the gills, has a unique tattoo, has a unique hairstyle. He looks like the kind of guy that you should have as your world champion, and they don't. In fact, the most he's done in this company is win the U.S. Tag Team titles once with J.R. Kratos. And I'm just thinking to myself, like, how do you have four guys who could legitimately be the face of your company, and they're not only not on the show every week, but none of them have been champions in some time. It's not like, listen, Alex Taylor's decent. But if you're looking for a headliner as the World Junior Heavyweight Champion, it's Kerry Morton or it's Colby Corino. And now, if you don't want to put that belt on them, put them in the world title scene and have Alex Taylor build up his reputation with the World Junior Heavyweight Championship. They're not doing that, though. They're not doing that at all, and it's infuriating to see because the guys they're pushing aren't going to help them get over. They're not developing fresh rivalries or unique wrestlers that can be part of the NWA brand. They're just revisiting old concepts again and again and again.
yeah, it's interesting with the way that you kind of look at these things. Let's see, the options WWE, AEW, TNA. Um, with clear people leaving, um, or choosing to just go elsewhere because they may see what you see. Who do you think would need the least amount of work in terms of transition to one of those companies? And then should they transition, in your opinion, what exactly do they need? Is the name change? Is a complete revamp of character? But they have the talent? Like, what is it?
Well, I think the four names I just mentioned, I think Odinson needs a bit of a gimmick tweak, but he's got the look. I think you can throw Kerry Morton into the X Division or a television title run on just about any company you want to go with. I think Colby might be your best bets all around as far as guys who can kind of come fresh off the boat, so to speak, for lack of a better term, and get right to work as some type of headliner. Thinking about it though, I don't think any of them are truly ready to step in as the guy for a promotion. I think all of them need some type of work, no matter who they are. Um, and I think going in that direction, building up these guys and getting them over, it's going to be a struggle for any company to get anyone over. If it was that easy, everyone would be a star.
Yeah.
But it's not that easy. So when you look at Daisy Kill, you look at Odinson, you look at Colby Carino and Kerry Morton, like they all have that potential. And you just need to actually push them to see if they can click, get over, and become stars. Otherwise, you're just going to be, recycling what we're about to talk about in a few minutes, and it's just
Yeah.
it's no good for anyone.
Yeah, and I had asked that because you would think, and this is probably, a sticking point for both of us, but specifically you because you watched him from, his earliest days in NWA, you would think that a jump acquiring somebody like Hammerstone, it would be a no-brainer what you could do with somebody like that. But, you know,
Yeah, and unfortunately, the way TNA's used Hammerstone has left me unexcited. But that's hopefully something that they can correct going forward as well. Um, but that takes us to our number 4 spot. Let's say you want to watch an NWA show. Gonna be honest with you, it ain't easy. It ain't easy to watch an NWA show. I don't mean just because of the quality either. I mean you have to go to Twitter. You have to watch the show on Twitter. If you want to watch a major event, they don't air them anymore as a major event. They used to, sell them on what was it, Fight TV or whatever they're calling themselves these days,
not even a profit company.
right? Yeah, you can't buy the pay per view. Instead, what they do to save on money, because again, they don't have any, is they air these specials as television shows. So you'll get like the Crockett Cup across 3 weeks, if you get it at all. It is hard to watch the NWA. Like Hard Times is coming up, named after Dusty Rhodes' iconic promo. But here's the thing: if you want to watch it, you're not gonna be able to see it live. Like I said, like they just had a tag team title change. I don't know if it aired today or if it was taped today because it's so hard to keep track of what's happening in this company because it's there's so little publicity around it. They don't do a good job, hyping up their product. They don't do a good job, getting other people to talk about it. And instead of us finding out like if it's live, if it's taped, where can we watch Hard Times? How can we watch Hard Times? Can we watch Hard Times? It's so easy, be it TNA, AEW, WB, New Japan, All Japan, Noah, hell, even MLW to extent. Like it's so easy to find all these other um, shows and their major events. Yet it's so much harder with the NWA because they just don't have the same reach and the same kind of pull that other people have or other companies have, and they don't do a good job making their content more accessible. And I think that's a big issue. Is their content is hard. Like you have to have a Twitter account just to get on to watch the show on Twitter. You need to find them. You need to deal with all the nonsense on the account. Then you need to, hopefully, right? If you want to watch a live show, you have to hopefully be there in attendance, because otherwise you're going to watch it on a delay.
The name of the show basically describes your viewing experience,
Yeah.
or your attempt to have a viewing experience with the show, which is tragically ironic because, like you said, it's supposed to be named after a wrestling icon's iconic promo. Instead, it's literally describing, like you said, the viewer's experience trying to watch it is what is the state of the company. It's not, and it's crazy because again, that's going to I would imagine lead off in the way you talk about like serious fumbled business calls,
Mm-hmm.
uh, leading to situations like that to the point where it's like you were supposed to be lined up for something, and then obviously they went with another situation. But I mean, it's to the point now. I don't even know if you could find NWA consistently on some of those alternative sites that we're familiar with
That we never use.
at all. Just verbal reference.
I think when you have a back catalog that stretches back 6, 7 years, and you don't have any way to access it, and this is an issue I have with MLW, I think that's an issue. I think that's a huge issue. And I think when you get to a point where you can grow and develop a fan base, but you can't have people watch old content, I think you failed spectacularly so. And this leads hand in hand with the next issue, number three, the lack of a TV situation. This company had a deal with the CW. Now they can sit here and say that the issues with Sinister Minister James Mitchell blowing coke, which we're told isn't coke. Uh, you can sit here and say for sure that um, that this wasn't an issue, that CW didn't drop you guys and all that, but you announce the deal, you get put on the app, not even on the channel, on the app, and then like 7 months later you get dropped for NXT. Clearly, there's liars involved. Clearly, Billy Corgan's lying. Whomever else is lying. They clearly had more going for them at the moment. They were probably lined up to get a television deal that was going to be several years long, and at the end, the folks at CW pulled out, or at least modified the contract, either due to contractual issues. Maybe they couldn't just outright deny them. Maybe they had to give them some type of airing. Um, and maybe that's what got them on the app, and then eventually just cut ties with them altogether and dropped them. Some 7 months later.
Yeah. The worst part about that part we talk about, like, you can say that it wasn't for that reason, but if it's not, if it really wasn't that reason, then they just looked at your product, looked at the potentiality for another product, and just went, well, this one what happens with a certain announcer or commentator. That was a real legitimate on air F up.
Mm-hmm.
Because otherwise, like you said, they either told them one thing and then end up lining something up in the background that they eventually went with. And just like, well, we kind of gave them our word a little bit. We told them they get on the CW. We never said how. And then hit them with a lateral. Or, like I said, they just looked at it and was like, yeah, we probably shouldn't even gave them a look.
Yeah, it's one thing to do drugs. It's another thing to be bad at your job. It's one thing to be so bad at your job, however, a completely different thing. Where you would rather people think that you're a cokehead instead of just being that bad at your job. No, I'm not terrible at this. I'm just a drug addict. Oh, that makes it better. And I think when you talk about the quality of the product, and we're gonna sit here and talk about this here in a second, um, the lack of television product isn't even the worst part. It's the fact that the television product is bad. The television product is real bad. One of the things that I think needs to kind of be mentioned is that this was a company, right, that did have some decent comedy. Right? Now, Joe Galley is a fine play-by-play guy. If he were to pop up in TNA, I wouldn't mind. But like they've had a history of really bad color commentators that started right after they fired Jim Cornette. Now Jim Cornette got fired because he said a pretty stupid thing on commentary, where he said that Trevor Murdoch was the only man tough enough to drive through Africa or the Sudan with a thing of fried chicken on his back. That was not a great line, and the problem with that line is they left it in. It was a tape show, Marcus, and they left that line in. Now, I understand his defense of it. He's like, no, it wasn't racist. It was about poverty and hunger. All right, cool. But you just said an entire country of black people would chase down a dude who had fried chicken. I don't care what you were trying to go for. Your symbolism has a touch of racism to it.
Which again speaks to the ineptitude because the fact that you left that in leads to the fact like, oh yeah, our audience isn't smart enough to catch on to that, and even if they do, they just will go right past it.
They did not, and they fired Cornette for it. And following Cornette, they've had a string of really bad color commentators. I mean, just the fucking worst. Now, sometimes Tim Storm will sit in, and he's fine.
Yeah.
But then you have like Velvet Sky. You have who the hell was it? Um,
Was Vega ever one of them?
who?
Vega, the Ring of Honor Vega Scott or something. The
Oh,
Vega.
Veda Scott. No, I don't think Veda Scott was ever one of them. Although she's fine. She's not great. She's fine. I have to look her up. It's sometimes they had Austin Idol, who's terrible, and a lot of times for some reason they do May Valentine, who is just incomprehensible. She's Brazilian, and I want to be very clear about this. I think she's Brazilian. She's from South America, and Spanish is her primary language. But when she speaks in English, she kind of has like a combination of Sofia Vergara and Fran Drescher's accents slammed together, making her not only hard to understand, but gratingly unwilling to sit through. And then they also have Danny Deals, who's fine as like a pitch man, but having to listen to him do color commentary, rough. Now they do have Kyle Davis, he's good, and Joe Galley is fine. He's not the next coming of Jim Ross, but he's fine. So when you're trying to watch the product and it's just a bad product, I think that's tantamount to not having a deal, right? I think that's even worse. Truthfully, I think if you have because TNA didn't have a TV deal for 2005 for like a good 4 or 5 months in 2005, yet they still had Mike Tenay and Don West on commentary, and they still put out a good show each and every week, even though they didn't have a home for it to air on. The NWA is in the same situation, and yet we still have to sit through Danny Dimes or Danny Deals and all these other yahoos, and it's a very unfun show to have to watch. Like we talked about the bad wrestling, the poor commentary, finding the show is already a hard. It's just bad all around. And what's even worse is like we could have had a much better option because Dave Marquez said about a year and a half ago that his promotion, United Wrestling Network, was about to land on the CW before the NWA deal happened, and then of course the NXT deal. They do a great job, or at least they were. I haven't really followed them in the last few months, but they have done a good job over the years putting out some good content. So yeah, if they had landed it, who knows what would have happened? Who knows what the wrestling landscape would have looked like?
Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't they have like Pope on commentary briefly?
The NWA did, yes, but they use him intersparingly, and I don't know when the last time he was on. He's a good color commentator, but that's a few and far between situation. Let's jump to number two, and that's Billy Corgan's general leadership issues. Um, I think that's pretty obvious when you look at who wins titles, where they go, the overall product, and one of the biggest issues I think they suffer from is they let go of David Marquez, who was a interviewer and a announcer, but he's also a longtime wrestling booker. In fact, he was before Billy Corgan got involved with the NWA. Dave Marquez was probably the face of the franchise because do you remember the Adam Pearce Colt Cabana feud for the NWA World Title? Like 2012? Maybe not. But it was Marquez who promoted it. And he got a lot of people talking. In fact, they even had like a DVD series that came out or like a DVD compilation that came out that sold pretty well for them. You have a guy who's very good at making money off of wrestling and promoting wrestling, and you just let him go, and the reasons why are unknown to me today. But I'll tell you this: if you have someone who can do this job, and you're Billy Corgan, I don't know why you don't bring him in permanently to do the job because you can't do the job because your show sucks.
Do you think some of these names that is head scratching that he lost, which we're gonna get more into after this? Do you think some of them was cost cutting measures on a certain note?
I think when it comes to Marquez, I think it's probably now Dave Marquez will never say this. He's generally speaking a well-respected, good dude who everyone loves. I think Dave Marquez and some others were cut because of the fact that they pushed back against Billy Corgan's vision for the company. I don't think I think Billy Corgan has a lot in common with certain sitting politicians where they need almost ubiquitous and unilateral loyalty to the cause, so to speak. And when you're not willing to be that loyal soldier, I think he gets rid of you. Um, when Nick Aldis, who's a genuine professional, he's heralded for that. When he goes on a rant and talks about his treatment within the company, it's fair to say that Billy Corgan doesn't have a great reputation. Like you pushed out the face of your franchise, and we don't talk about it enough. Granted, the NWA gets more shots in than a Donald Cerrone UFC fight, but when you have guys who are generally seen as professional talking trash about you, I think it's fair to say that you probably don't do a great job holding on to the talent that you need to succeed. So, Billy Corgan's terrible leadership, number two. Marcus, number one, should not be a shock to anyone. But it's the over reliance on failed WWE mid carders. I want to be very clear. It's one thing to bring in Adam Copeland Edge, right? John Moxley, Chris Jericho. They're headliners. They may not be the best in anymore, but they're headliners. Sting, headliner. The Young Bucks, headliners. Cody Rhodes, headliners. It's another thing to bring in Tyrus and put the belt on him. Here's just a few names, right? Here's just a few names that I know for a fact have been in this company. We're not talking about TNA picking up Raven in 2003. Former ECW headliner, upper mid-card star in WCW, and really just got the ass end of the stick too many times. And had all the talent needed to be a headliner, right? We're not talking about Jeff Jarrett, who got held back because Stone Cold Steve Austin threw a hissy fit. We're not talking about guys with potential to be stars. Paul Levesque going from WCW to WWF. Mark Calloway becoming The Undertaker. We're talking about the bottom of the fucking barrel. These are the names that they've had on the roster. Trevor Murdoch. Now, granted, I like Trevor Murdoch's title win. I thought they could do something with that. They couldn't. Trevor Murdoch didn't want to get into shape, and his matches are not that great. Mike Mondo, formerly of the Spirit Squad. Remember Mike Mondo? He is the least memorable member of the Spirit Squad who isn't Mitchell, whatever his name was. Like, really? Then you have Thom Latimer, the current world champion. Why is he in the NWA? Because he can't get work anywhere else. Noah doesn't want him. The rest of Japan doesn't want him. TNA doesn't want him. AEW doesn't want him. WWE doesn't want him. MLW doesn't want him. Recently, the Colognes, Epico and Primo, just popped up on the NWA. They're out of shape, and their match was ass. Cool. We also have Paul Burchill. Yes, that Paul Burchill. Remember him, the Pirate? Now, if he was doing the Pirate gimmick, maybe that'd be fun. Hell, just because it would be different if he was brought in with Katie Lee and they were doing their thing from 15 years ago, 20 years ago, or 18 years ago. Yeah, it's gross, but at least it's different. No, he's just bald British dude now, or shaved head British dude. It's like, oh, cool, 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 cool. He's not even the Ripper like he was before he got caught up and became the Pirate. He's just Paul. He's not even Paul. He's just Burchill. Just Burchill. We've mentioned him before, Rodney Mack. He's one of the former tag team champions. I think his name is Damage. 54-year-old Rodney Mack. World tag team champion, or former, very recently as well. Then you have Mike Knox, who I like Knox as an accessory wrestler. Like he's a good name to beat. Hey, I'm gonna beat you up. How do you make a guy look good? I don't know. Have Mike Knox lose to him. Great role for him. World Tag Team Champion, which he currently is. Nope, not a great role. Then, of course, Aaron Stevens, who, of the list, maybe is the best name, but most charisma. You know, at one point he was seen as a future world champion, and maybe it could have worked. Of this entire list, though, he's the only one who's not wrestling anymore. He's a manager, which is baffling. And they'll have others. There was a time when they had a Melina, a Homicide, an Eli Drake, or what have you. And those names weren't names that I would, thumb my nose at because, like, Melina was at one point a pretty prominent figure in WWE. She was a success story. And then she went to the NWA and had really good matches. When you look at Tyrus, at no point was he a success in anywhere he went, let alone when he ended up in the NWA. Yeah, he was the world champion for over a year. And he was only a world champion because he had an occasional spot on Fox News night show. That's it. That's the only reason he won the title. And then you put the belt. Excuse me, I had to sneeze. And then you put the belt on him. Like, you put the belt on him and made fans suffer through 12 months of bad matches because he sometimes has a late night show on a poorly rated cable news network. What are we doing here, Billy? What are we doing? I think it's the over reliance on these absolute mid tier wrestlers, or sub mid tier, lower mid tier wrestlers, and how they're constantly getting spots, titles, opportunities. And the failure to book and develop stars out of the younger crop, I think that's the biggest issue. That's holding this company back. I don't want to see Mike Mondo or Thom Latimer or the Colognes. But the talent I do want to see, you're either falling out of favor with, like Joe. What was his name? Give me a second. Joe Alonzo. Joe Alonzo was a pretty decent hand. Nothing super special. But he was somebody that AEW has taken a look at, and he wrestled, roughly like 50 matches for the NWA over 3 years, and he was even their light heavyweight champion until you screwed that up. He left the company while still champion. He just didn't want to be there anymore. So when you think about that, yeah, not exactly a great situation to be in. Right? Add more titles and not have the talent needed to carry them. I'm like, listen, you can have more titles. Just make sure that when you have titles, you have guys who can carry them or gals that can carry them. Don't just add belts and then throw whoever thinking that the belts will make the wrestler. The wrestler, in many instances, make the belt. What did Jay Lethal say to Jay Briscoe? That belt made you, I made this belt. I think when you think about it, like, yeah, you need better talent. And you can't just rely on guys like Tyrus or Thom Latimer or whoever else you can get from the mid tier of WWE's. Like, are you gonna bring in Jimmy Yang next? Like, who's next? Are we gonna have what was his name? Big funky hair. I think his name was like Ortiz something. Ricky Ortiz. Are you gonna bring in Ricky Ortiz next? What about? Elias would be interesting. Elias is someone who wasn't tapped fully and I think could get over. He's got the charisma to carry himself to another level, which, by the by, is something that none of these guys have. Every name I mentioned so far, besides Aaron Stevens, lack charisma. So, like, someone like Elias could do really well here. But apparently he's working with Ring of Honor. He's not on a full-time deal, but he's working with the Righteous, is what they're being called. So, like, we'll see what he does there. But, like, there are talents out there that could come in and I think do very well. Two of them, I've thought about this endlessly. I think if you really want to reset the company, clear out these J Browns that are bogging you down, retire some of the belts, and do a best of 7 series. Like, don't even have Thom lose the belt. Just strip him of the belt. Because there's no point in having a conversation about who he would put over. And just get Davey Richards and John Gresham and do a best of 7 series to crown a new champion. Establish that you are the new Ring of Honor, that you are about no frills, all thrills. Like, no frills, all thrills. Like, make that your gimmick. This is the most prestigious belt. This is the belt that Bryan Danielson in 2006 or 2007, excuse me, cut a passionate promo to try to win. You know, because they had lost their standing with TNA, and Danielson was either in the middle of his Ring of Honor title run or had just ended it, and cut this amazing promo, I think, in the hallway of a high school. And he's just like, "This is the belt that I want. This is the belt that means the most in wrestling. Like this belt is impactful. It means something." And they didn't do it at the time. I forgot who did they give it to. I think it was Blue Demon. Let's look that up real quick because yikes, that was a fumble of all fumbles. Let's see, 2007. It was it was Adam Pearce. He won it for the first time in Puerto Rico. But like you had the chance to have Bryan Danielson as your champion, and you said, "No, we're good." You don't make that mistake twice. You have John Gresham, Dave Finlay, not Dave Finlay, Davey Richards. They're out there. They're ready to go. Book them. Get them on the show. Put the belt on them. You pay Tyrus his handling fee. Why can't you pay Gresham's? They're free agents. Bring them in. Make them the new face of your franchise. And you may actually get fans back into your product. But instead, we're getting Mike Mondo. Cool.
Do you think they use that serve going back to YouTube?
If they can. Yeah, absolutely. I don't know how much they're making off of Twitter. If they're making actual money off of Twitter and they're not making money off of YouTube, no, stay on Twitter. Wrestling's about making money. At the end of the day, you can be a purist, a fanboy, what have you. At the end of the day, it's about making money. And if you can't make money, what are we doing, right? So I would say stay on Twitter if the money is actually there. But would you watch them more on Twitter if they were? Would you watch more on YouTube if they went back?
The serve because it's easy to get the content. And
Mm-hmm.
like I said, and I didn't ask you this earlier when you talk about when you can't go back and look at the library. Did they take old stuff that they had up on the off their channel, like the 2019 stuff and all that?
Uh, I couldn't tell you right off the top of my head, but maybe it would be foolish if they did. Overall, the NWA needs a lot of work. They need someone better suited for running things. I don't think you need to worry about the money of it all. Because if you can get enough guys who are talents, who can wrestle, who have big personalities, you can develop something real cool. But you have to, be willing to admit that your Southern wrestling style just doesn't work anymore. I think if you went and got some like Warhorse, who's doing a whole new gimmick, I think, and you had him go back to his old gimmick where he's just that crazy rock dude with the Ultimate Warrior inspired paint, face paint. Put the TV title on him and give him a microphone. I think you could get people into the show real fast. Put Davey Richards and John Gresham in the main event for 3 or 4 months. I think people would be like, these are great matches. Bring in what's his name? Shit. He was just referenced on Raw last night. Forget his name. Like Mercer, I think the Iron Demon. Bring him in. He's a hell of a hand. Start bringing in guys that have some notoriety. That's what you did, and you can do it again. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens with this company. I wouldn't be surprised if the NWA either went out of business in the next 2 years or was sold in the next 2 years. Truthfully.
That ballpark, as we close out, how much do you think Hogan's put into it?
20 million. Just assuming, like, let's say you run 45 weeks a year of television, maybe 50 weeks a year. To do that, you run at least 10 shows, at least. We'll say 15 on years where you're actually doing, Hard Time and Crockett Cup and whatnot. I think you're spending about 2 million a year, and you've been doing this for about 7 years. So At least 14 million, if not more. Now, maybe he spent 20 million and has made 19.5 million. Cool. I can't see in any way, shape, or form that this project has made him money, though. Maybe he hasn't lost that much. Maybe each year he only loses like 50 grand. I don't believe for a second that he's made a single dollar, though, on this venture. So who knows? I don't know what's going to happen with this company. I want them to succeed. I want them to be around. I don't like the idea of companies closing. I don't know why people root for it. I want the NWA to be around. I just want it to be better.
Yeah.
Just give me a better show. Marcus, any final thoughts on this week's show?
No, probably I just got to catch up with you in terms of doing a Russell game. You got to probably go TNN, obviously, as a go-toist. Check out that New Japan show at the very least.
Yeah, the last half of it, like the show is great. Um, Oleg, I forget his name, the big Eastern European guy, faced off.
Lewis.
No, not no, like that's Vladimir Kozlov. They got this like Bolton, I think his name is. He wrestled uh, Kaneshke Takeshita. I don't like Takeshita. I think he's a very dull personality. But like they had a good match. I enjoyed it. Gabe Kidd had a baller match with I forget his name. I see him as like the new Shinsuke Nakamura with the kind of overly flamboyance. I forget his name. Shushima. I don't remember his name. He's fairly new to this. Not new, but he's new to in a main event role. He won the belt at Wrestle Kingdom. Maybe I can just look it up real quick. Okay.
Was Shingo on the show?
Shingo Takagi wrestled Drilla Maroney. I think is his name. Let me see. I'm pulling it up now. 45 years old. What are we doing, Hiroshi? The dude's almost as old as you. I'm sorry. This is just a stupid decision. It's fine. Whatever. Yota Tushi, Sushi, Yota Yushi. I don't know how you pronounce that. He had a draw with Gabe Kidd that was incredible. Lij, Hiromu Takahashi, and Tetsuya Naito defeated the Young Bucks to win the tag belts. Kaneshke Takeshita defeated Oleg Bolton. That's his name. Those matches were all great. I didn't watch the first half where the Ichiban Sweet Boys defeated Roppongi Revice with Rocky Romero and Yo. Shota Umino lost to Great Okan for some reason. Drill Maloney defeated Shingo Takagi. Maybe I shouldn't be giving you all the results. Taiji Ishimori and Sonata came down for a match against Taichi. Sonata and Taichi faced off. But Taka Michinoku seconded Taichi, so I think that's pretty cool, even though Taichi is terrible and he's your favorite wrestler. With his fantastic fake singing that he's been doing for 10 years. Time for a new gimmick. All right. With that being said, I think we're done. Be sure to follow us at the website, realnerdcorp.com, REALNERDCORP.com. We're on Twitter at NERDCORP. Marcus, you can be found on Twitter at ParadoxKid, PARADOXKID.
That's me.
You can also find him on his other podcast, The True Penny Show, TRUEPENNYSHOW, also on Twitter. They cover a lot of GLEAT, so be sure to check them out. You can find me on Twitter at Chad Nerdcorp, CHUD, and on the Instagram at ChadSpotto at CHUDSPHOTOHUT. Maybe one day I'll start posting on Twitter again. With all that being said, we're done. I don't know what we're going to cover next week. Maybe we'll cover the fallout of the releases. See who's going where from what off of the WWE and AEW releases. Obviously, Ricky Starks is now in NXT. Maybe we'll talk about that. Maybe we'll talk about something else. I don't know. Yeah, we'll think of some things. If not, we'll be here next Tuesday around 9 p.m. Eastern Standard anyway. So just tune in. Twitch.tv/Wrestling Underground. Just check us out. We're not great, but we're better than heroin. I feel like there are worse ways to spend your night. We're better than a Tyrus match. All right. With all that being said, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for checking us out. Thanks for giving us a chance. Remember, to always watch more wrestling. Marcus, take us home.